are joined by Liz Morgan. Liz has been working and helping churches to communicate for a long time, and we can't wait to hear her story today. But first, as regular listeners will know, we have to subject Liz to our quite incredible and really interesting icebreaker questions. So for the first, and I do believe this is the most important question that you can ever ask to get to know someone, what is your favourite biscuit?
It is the Fox's biscuit, the chocolatey milk chocolate round. Ooh. Do you know the one? I had to go get the full name because I was like, it's that round one.
You've done some research.
Yeah, I was like, what is the proper name for that biscuit? It's the round one covered in lots of chocolate. I love it because it's got a really good ratio of like chocolate to crunch, and I think that's really important for me. But probably don't buy it that much because, you know, portion control. Danger. It's Christmas. Crack it out.
Yeah. Has to be a treat. Have you tried the white chocolate ones?
Yeah, I have. The milk chocolate ones are definitely, I think, trump those, but I do like a white chocolate as well.
Yes, no, they are good. They're always the first ones to go if you've got like an event and people put biscuits out and you think, oh, I can go and grab one of them in a minute. Nope.
Oh, you know the event has some budget when they're putting Foxes out.
It's the bishops coming.
It's a good event.
So next question then, what is your favourite social media platform?
So this was a tricky question. I think I go through phases, and I think I do feel like every social media platform has its purpose depending on what you're doing. So I'm about to change jobs. So LinkedIn, I feel like has been, you know, that for career development and all of that. LinkedIn's been a really good place. I love YouTube. I'm an avid like DIYer, but I also love a bit of like true crime and all of that kind of stuff. So I feel like YouTube is my go-to for like, how on earth do you paint your UPVC front door? But also, what's the intel on that particular crime story or whatever it is that's going on? So I love a bit of YouTube. I have to say I've deleted Instagram off my phone at the moment just because I was spending too much time in Reels. So this is a bit of self-control. But definitely bottom of the pile is Twitter/X. I've exited it, I'm afraid. So that is definitely bottom of the pile. I feel like I've ranked them rather than giving you just my favourite.
No, I love it. That's good. So you've actually kind of answered it slightly already. Do you have any favourite podcasts, whether they are industry relevant or true crime? You know, is there anything that you regularly sort of tune into each week?
Again, I'm a bit of an eclectic. I think you'll get this impression. Like, I love a bit of everything. I don't normally just stick to one thing. With podcasts. So it's kind of, I guess it's a YouTube webinar series, less of a podcast, but I feel like it's quite podcasty. Marketing Meetup is like a load of events that there's a guy called Joe Glover who runs them. He's like really big on LinkedIn, and he does all of these like in-person events, but does loads and loads of webinars, and they're just really great for like marketing intel, whether you're kind of like starting out or whether you want to kind of like dive into a topic. So being a marketer, that's like one of my top kind of listens. I often just like put it on and then listen away. You don't have to kind of sit and watch. So I kind of feel like it bridges the gap to kind of podcast territory. But then I do love a bit of like kind of pop culture and that kind of stuff. But I do very much like Catherine Ryan's Telling Everybody Everything at the moment, for a bit of fun. And then also BBC Sounds for that kind of investigative journalism, true crime type stuff. So, but also actually recently started listening to What Now by Trevor Noah, because that he does a lot of kind of, there's a good range of like political stuff and then just kind of social commentary, etc., etc. So yeah, I cover quite a bit of ground, I think. Podcast listens.
And what is your go-to true crime one?
Well, I do like, because BBC Sounds cover a lot of different topics. I think that's really interesting. Like, I think it was BBC Sounds who did like the Lucy Letby. They did like a whole kind of like thing on Lucy Letby. But then there's all sorts of different ones. There's lots of different ones in there. So good to dive in.
Awesome, amazing. And final question, gourd or pomegranate?
Yes, gourd. I'm going to have to say, because I love a pumpkin and a cucumber, and pomegranate gets stuck in my teeth.
We finally got someone else picking a gourd.
Yes,
it's not very often picked. Most of the time, people are like,
Yeah,
what is
you
a
are in the
gourd?
minority there.
Pumpkin is such a versatile veg. You can make it into soup, sauce, really great as a sauce.
Pie.
roasted. It's just
Great
great.
nights.
I'm like that, and I have to say, like, with I've got 2 children, we honestly get through about 4 to 5 cucumbers a week. We're just cucumber munchers. It's a good healthy snack. So yeah, I have to say that.
Amazing.
Nice.
Super. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you've made it through the toughest questions. So the next one, we'll just ask you about yourself. So hopefully it'll be nice and easy to answer. So tell us a little bit about who you are and a bit of your story of how you got to what you're doing now.
Yeah, so I'm Liz, as you know, and I've been working in kind of marketing comms, for quite a long time. I feel like the beginning is kind of blurry. It's kind of, there was a lot of crossover between other things I was doing at the time as well. And yeah, so currently I'm working as a marketing manager in a creative agency. And we were bought kind of just at the end of last year. So previous to that, we were a tech agency, and now we've kind of been bought by a creative agency. So I've really kind of been in the role for like 2.5 years. And it's been really brilliant to kind of expand my marketing skills, get to know like lots of different things. So yeah, it's been a good 2.5 years. Prior to that, I was working in the Church of England in their digital communications team, and it was there that I led the Digital Labs project, which was digital skills training, or is a digital communications training program just designed to help churches make the most of all the brilliant communication strategies and different platforms that are out there and just really use it for their own communities. And I led that for 3.5 years, and that was such a brilliant job. I loved it a lot. Got to pre-COVID, got to travel the country. I visited 40 of 44 dioceses, so it was a really busy kind of 1.5-ish before COVID pandemic. So I think I got to, in that time, got to really appreciate just how different every community is, how unique it is, and just met with some really brilliant volunteers who were just doing the best that they could from like really tiny kind of village churches. And you'd go along and they'd welcome you with donuts and coffee and like get you kind of set up for your training day.
And Fox's Biscuits, hopefully.
And Fox's Biscuits, yes, absolutely. To kind of other places where, you know, maybe more urban areas where there's busy churches. And you just got to see the breadth of the church. And I think I really fell in love with the Church of England in that time. And I wasn't at that point attending a Church of England church myself. But I think I fell in love with it, and it was a really brilliant couple of years. And during the pandemic, everything went online. So in my 3.5 years there, we'd gone from training about 1,000 a year to, in total at the end of it, 13,500 people had attended something at some point, whether it was in person, whether it was a conference, whether it was an online training session. So it was it's definitely been for me like a real career highlight to be able to have supported churches, especially during the pandemic when everything was closed and kind of shut off, and so many churches knew what they were doing, but there was a whole bunch of others that were like, oh wow, I have no idea how to host a Zoom meeting so that our church community can pray together, or those people who can't, come along to churches when they opened can like still stay connected. And it was just, I felt like such a privilege to be able to support churches during that time. I'm kind of going backwards here with my story. Before that, I was before Church of England, I was freelancing in social media. I began my kind of working life as a nurse, and I'd spent 10 years nursing, and I think more and more I just found I actually kind of started volunteering in my local church as like in that comms and design, and more that grew, the more I kind of fell in love with it as like a really something that I really wanted to pursue even more, and just found working life being a nurse and having children complicated, so kind of the comms career kind of called me. Went freelance and then ended up at the Church of England. So it's been kind of a blurry start from volunteering to kind of doing it more professionally, but that was kind of a backward story. I hope that made sense.
Yeah, no, it does. It's helpful to see sort of where you come from and how it all pieces together. I mean, you mentioned that in that role, and especially in travelling around and seeing the huge variety there, that you sort of fell in love with the Church of England. Did you have much previous experience with the C of E? It's just a curiosity because, for me, since working with churches, I've gained a lot of that experience. But beforehand, it was kind of, I grew up in a Baptist church. There was a local C of E, but there wasn't much going on there. And so it was kind of like, I think it was too closely linked to me as just like primary school.
Yeah.
But actually, there's so much there. So what was your experience of it before that role?
Before,
How did it change? Yeah.
Grew up in Baptist church. Like,
Uh-huh.
been going to a Baptist church since I was since beginning of time. With my family, and when I went to university I started going along to like a Pentecostal evangelical free church, which was very much like where all the students were. It was really lively, really brilliant, and that's where I started kind of volunteering, and gave me some really fantastic opportunities. I kind of owe my career where I am now to that kind of early beginning, volunteering in that church. So I have a lot to be grateful to them for that. So if you're listening and you're in that role and you want a comms career, please don't despise if you're there volunteering, doing stuff, don't despise that early beginning at all. Like, it's like I said, I owe my career to that. But I didn't have much of a kind of experience other than weddings, things like that. I'd kind of gone along and experienced, but I think I hadn't really seen kind of the life behind a Church of England church other than knowing it was there on a corner. So that job really kind of opened up my eyes to what was out there and how brilliant so many communities across the country are.
Yeah, for sure.
Amazing. So you've covered a little bit of it already, but where does your passion for church comms come from? What is it about church comms and marketing that sort of really, really excites you?
Yeah, I think my passion, for comms particularly, came from actually working on busy wards, like being a nurse, and realising so many complaints or so many kind of things that happen on the wards that people would complain about, whether it was between staff or seniors or between patients or families. So many of them came down to like just poor communication, whether it was someone just hadn't explained something very clearly, or someone had been missed out of the loop, or whatever it was kind of communications. And then also, like, wards were so often have these boards and they were just covered in posters and covered in this and this, and you just kind of look at it going, well, no one can understand this, and I think that for me was just like, and I think it unlocked something that I didn't know inside myself. I was actually I really cared a lot about how we communicate and how we talk to one another, and whether it's digitally or whether it's in person, whether it's that internal comm. So I think that was for me where it kind of initially began. And then I've always been quite a creative person. I mentioned you did volunteering in my church in the kind of design, whether it was making stuff for websites or social or the newsletter. And I think because I had that kind of skill, that kind of gift, I think it kind of nicely married those two things together. And then I think for me, I grew up in church. Like, my family were always, my dad was a deacon, my mum was the organist and the pianist for throughout my childhood. We've just been, my parents just showed me, you just get on, we go to church, we get involved, we don't just go and attend. So I think it just kind of then made sense to me that, well, if I love doing this and I really care about communications, well, why wouldn't you just go along to your church, and why wouldn't you kind of contribute that? So I think it was just kind of baked in from a really young age that's just how we do church. So I think it's kind of that passion is just that mixture of stuff that has been using my gift and inbuilt kind of desire to contribute wherever I go in that situation. And I think you can have such an impact as a church as well, like just getting the communications better, making it better. It doesn't have to be perfect, it doesn't have to be viral. If we can just kind of improve it in one way or two ways, I think we can have such an impact in our local community. So I think it's a really good way for churches to just, maybe if we can help tweak their thinking on things, then it can actually just have such a significant impact.
So bringing about an improvement that can have an impact.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, you mentioned, I think, some of the passion and some of the realisation for the need of comms from sort of your nursing, and then that you were creative. Was there anything that helped bridge that gap in terms of sort of learning like website stuff and social stuff, or was it just that you were kind of already doing that in some sense, and so you picked it up as you went, or how did that come about? Because I think there's probably a lot of people who are in that situation who are seeing this could be something really good. I could do this, but not really knowing the next steps with it.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there's a bit of a mixture. I think the church that I attended was very geared towards young people in giving them opportunity. Like, I look back and I'm like, it was really amazing actually that so many young people were given responsibility just to get on with stuff and to try it. And I think sometimes that can be a bit of a barrier, you know, in some churches, or I don't know if these young people can, you know, commit to it or whatever it is, or they haven't got the skills yet. I kind of felt like there was an environment where we were allowed to try things out. I also know that there were people around me who kind of were going, oh, you could try it, you could do it, you know, and had kind of egging you on and supporting you in that. But I think also, and I think I mean, I'm talking a long time ago when I was at uni, and I think there's just so much more wealth of information out there. I think there's not a lot that I don't think you could learn on YouTube, honestly. In terms of like particularly church comms, I think if you look at kind of Canva, you look at all the information, all the how-to videos, particularly Canva has out there, you can learn from design principles to how to use something. I think there's just so much. So I would really encourage people to firstly try it. Canva, brilliant free tool, is great for kind of creating designs and videos. There's so much there that you can just get on with yourself. But then also go and have a look on YouTube. And I think as long as you just try and learn one new thing and just try and push yourself a little bit, I think there's not a lot you can't learn. I think it's committing to it. But I do think, like I said, the environment's really important. I think it can be difficult if you're in an environment where perhaps people are maybe not giving you a chance or not supporting with that. So I think it's kind of twofold. Personal kind of, you know, you can go and learn it, but also the people around you helping you to do that as well.
So for those who maybe, I don't want to say control the environment, but those for where church leaders, where they have the ability to change the environment, you know, what can we do to develop an environment where there is a permission to sort of experiment and try and fail and explore, you know, within our churches?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, it's a good one to think about. I think it's going to be a consistent challenge. I think that, especially when it comes to maybe social media, is a good place to kind of think, particularly like maybe Instagram. I think if you're worried about, if you're not kind of like not sure about what people could do or what to contribute, I think it's just remembering that, yeah, especially like younger people, that they're so in tune with kind of what's going on right now and trends and stuff like that. They're actually going to be really brilliant at communicating with their peers and their people kind of around them. So I think it's about maybe just being a bit brave and kind of saying, I'm going to give them that opportunity, and maybe let's just see how they go. Let's like give them Instagram, the Instagram login, and let them try some stuff out and create some reels, set some guides up. We don't want to do this, we're not going to talk about that, we're not getting political, we're not doing, you know, set some kind of parameters for the kind of stuff. But I think actually just, you can't go too wrong, I think, with stuff like that. So I think it is perhaps just trying it and giving them some parameters and letting them have a go to see what they can achieve. I think you know, my personal story, as I mentioned, you know, is one that my career is, you know, based on the fact that I started out and someone gave me a go. So I think it's not just about thinking about the moment of, oh, maybe they'll post something that, or maybe they'll create a video that isn't quite what we want. But if they don't try and they don't fail, they never learn. And you could be really investing in the future of that individual and where they go to and what they're able to do in the future. So I think maybe, don't know, maybe it's that kind of sense of pride or that worry or whatever it is. I think we do have to kind of lay that down a little bit and just kind of go, never mind, let's just have a go. I was listening to Stephen Bartlett. There was a brand, I can't remember the name of the brand now, it was only like last week, that kind of launched like an AI influencer, and you know, the brand did it and they were like, we're just introducing you to our AI editor. That's what it was. It was this completely made up AI avatar that was kind of in this quite senior position as an editor for their company, and everyone hated it, and they ended up kind of apologising and take it down. And I loved Stephen Bartlett's response, because he came out and said, oh, give these people a pay rise. They tried something, they got it wrong, but they were so brave to even in the first place go ahead and do it. And I think sometimes we can be so scared of getting it wrong and what that might mean that we never do anything. So I would say to church leaders, if you're worried about your young people doing something wrong, it doesn't matter. We can delete the post, we can pull it down. You know, as long as you've given them some parameters to, you know, not do anything too wild. That's the way to go. So I think if Stephen Bartlett's telling us to fail, it's kind of a good one to listen to. So
Yeah. No, that's really helpful. I think, a lot of us will have similar stories, whether that's sort of in comms or outside of it, where something that we tried out in church for the first time has then actually shaped a lot of the rest of our life. And the potential to do that is really cool, just with that bit of guidance. And it could be as well that it's giving people some kind of ground rules, but also saying, right, well, look, make the video and then bring it back and let's have a chat. It doesn't have to be that they have carte blanche to do whatever they want within that guidance, and you go, okay, probably shouldn't have done that. It's a collaborative thing, right? And I think the other thing is going back to the heart of why we're doing this and reminding people, whether it's sort of new volunteers, whether it's younger people, whoever, this isn't just about getting likes. This isn't about getting a follower count up, but like there is a genuine gospel purpose, because not only will that guide the types of content that they're creating, but hopefully it will guide the way that they're doing it as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's really important to talk about what on earth you're doing there, and I think we can get so waylaid by, like you said, like lights and or just kind of telling people come along, do this, do that, and actually, sharing the story and sharing some of the vision or the passion that you have for your local community through social media, and equipping the young people to think about what's the best way to do that, I think is really brilliant.
So Liz, you said that you visited 44 dioceses, is that correct?
40 or 44,
okay.
There was just the four outliers that we didn't, I can't even remember who they were now, that we didn't
just
get
really
to go
didn't
see.
like those ones. Not visiting.
Invite only, so they didn't like us. No, I joke. No, I joke.
I mean, that's still quite a lot though, and
It's a
that's
lot.
For sure.
that's thousands and thousands of people and churches, and it sort of individuals maybe representing charities and other projects and things. Like that's an incredible number to work with in your previous role with the Church of England. So what opportunities do you see with Church of England churches that others may not have encountered, and are there any specific challenges that they might face as well?
Yeah, it took me a while to think about this one actually. I think because I guess there'll be lots of crossover in between different churches and different communities particularly, but I do think one of the things that what I've always think is like one of the beautiful things about the Church of England is that the whole country is divided into parishes. So every home in the whole of our country is kind of associated with a church, with a vicar, is looked after by that parish, and I think that's actually just such a beautiful thing. And so when it comes to kind of communications, I think that gives every church a really defined audience to kind of communicate to. And I think sometimes one of the challenges that we can have, especially with communication, is like, oh, who are we talking to? And sometimes social media makes us think more globally, because we're like, well, we have the opportunity. Someone in Africa watched our YouTube channel, because we can see that kind of statistic, or China or the USA or wherever it is, and you're kind of like, sometimes it can pull you to think bigger. But actually I think the fact that every church, every parish kind of has this very set defined group of houses and homes and people that it cares for, brings us right back down to, and it really helps us focus our purpose when we're talking to people online. And as a church, I think that's a really important thing to do. Just have a really good idea in your mind of like, who are the people in the streets and the houses, who works here in our little parish, who are we talking to, what do they need right now, how can we as a church reach out to them with a message of hope, with love, how can we invite them in, how can we be welcoming to that particular set of people. And then I think then that enables you to look, well, then what are the best platforms to go to? We don't have to have a TikTok channel just because, there are some really brilliant vicars on TikTok doing amazing things. Like, that's their ministry. We don't have to be there because our community are on Nextdoor and they like to chat on Nextdoor. So let's focus in on that platform, or let's keep to our Facebook groups or wherever it is that is the right thing for you. So I think that actually that's an opportunity that I think sometimes it's quite a simple thing maybe, but I think sometimes we can overlook the impact of that power of the kind of definition we have of our own community and our parish and who we are talking to. So I think that's a really good thing for churches to really focus in on.
Yeah, for sure. That Nextdoor is a really interesting one, actually, and it's the sort where, unless you actually go and look, I mean, let's forget the amount of leaflets they put through your door to try and get you on the platform. Unless you go and look, you don't know who is there in your local community. But is that something you've seen churches using?
I mean, not widely, to be honest, but I think
Yeah.
as a person, as a member of my local church, it's actually really useful to, that's where people go, and whether it is just maybe as a person to go and see what do people care about in my community, what are the discussions about, but it is the place where people find answers to, you know, that I'm looking for a tradesperson or an event space or whatever it is, you know, that you're looking for. People go on next door and ask those questions, as well as in Facebook groups. But I think if you just have that in your minds of like, we'll make sure that we have a presence there, not necessarily as like a business or, you know, but as the vicar or as, you know, people who are that you know, maybe you've decided that that's what I'm going to make sure that I do, that I share the stuff that our church is doing there to let people know that it's happening. So I think it's just a place to, as people in a church, recognising that we all have a part to play in communicating about what's happening and the gospel, then I think that it's great to be there and to kind of share that as well. And like I said, also just like, what do people care about? You know, there's a great kind of mine of information about what people are worried about or bothered about, or, you know, so I think it's worth having your eye on and, you know, being involved in where you can.
Yeah. And I think the other thing, you know, I mentioned before that most of my life, my experience with the Anglican Church was through, like, it was connected to school, or there's other sort of local events that go, you know, there are opportunities, I think, that local parish churches will have for sort of weddings, funerals, whatever else that goes on, that my church is never going to have, because it's not the go-to church for that sort of thing. But does that bring challenges with it alongside those opportunities?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a really brilliant opportunity, like you say, like, you know, especially for, if we think about from a very basic SEO point of view, people Googling, where can I get married in my parish? You know, make sure your church has kind of thought about those keywords and, you know, literally, you know, weddings in your location, have a page about that so that people find you and they go, oh, we could get married here. Oh, this is the vicar. This is really nice. I'm going to talk to them about it. Or anything else that you've got going on. I think you're right that is a really fantastic opportunity. But yeah, of course it has challenges. I think one of the challenges that I know, especially around kind of weddings, funerals, baptisms, when I was working in the Church of England, I know that I think that was the Life Events team did some really brilliant research, and they've I can't remember exactly the statistics, but people who get married or have their child christened in a church, they consider that to be their church for life, was the kind of what was understood from that data. So they feel an intrinsic connection to that church, no matter where life takes them. However, as people in churches, we're not always very good at keeping in touch with them. You know, we're not very good at sending them an anniversary card. We know when their anniversary is because they got married in the building. We know when their child's christening's coming up, or, you know, anniversary is coming up. They had it with us. Like, could we be better at just dropping in to their life, no matter, you know, how many years have passed, no matter if they don't come back kind of, you know, until Christmas time. I think that we could be better at that, following up, and, you know, that involves having a bit of a system. There's, I don't know, I mean, like I say, I'm like 2.5 years out of the church. There used to be something called the Life Events Diary, which helped with that. If it's still running, the Life Events Diary is really good. And that was just a way for the Church of England churches to manage those bookings. And then also it would remind you when the anniversary is coming up, or if, you know, at Christmas time, a couple of months after, is why don't we just post them a flyer so they know to come along, and just keep your church top of mind, and just let them know that you do care and you think about them. And I think that's really powerful, particularly when we know that people consider it to be their church for life because of that. You know, that's a real important connection we can't neglect. So yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity there.
I'd never thought of it that way, but yeah, that's so interesting.
Yeah, so good. So what do you think is the primary challenge for UK church comms, but also sort of what excites you for the future of church comms, whether that's something short term or into the unknown of long term, who knows where it's all going to be, but sort of, yeah, what do you think is the sort of the biggest challenge that we're facing?
I think quality across the board is a challenge that everyone will face. Small businesses, churches, everyone. It is you know, quality of content. And I think in a society where we're completely oversaturated with social media content, and especially as we're looking to now, we're seeing more and more AI generated content, you know, that's a whole nother kind of like level of quality of, you know, and so easily churns out. I feel like there is a quality issue, but I think that, you know, as I spoke about earlier, there is so much we can learn to improve. And it doesn't mean that we have to get better at everything, and it doesn't mean that we have to certainly be kind of become cinematographers or, you know, graphic designers. Like, that is not the ask at all. But I think when we understand that if we can make the typography better on a flyer, if we can improve contrast, if we can maybe pick slightly better photo that showcases our community in a nicer way, we can make such a big difference to visual communication and how someone feels welcomed in, that actually might think, oh yeah, I understand what they're saying here, I do want to come along. That if we kind of think about it in that way, that we could actually improve the amount of people that kind of respond when they see stuff online or wherever, then actually I think that we should do something to improve those. And I think maybe it's just looking at maybe one or two things that you think would be the best things to start. Maybe it's your newsletter. I think church newsletters are brilliant and, you know, should never be neglected. I think that's your community of people who are, you know, you're right there direct into their inbox. So make sure your newsletter, you know, is don't neglect it for social media. It's really brilliant. Maybe it's your newsletter that you want to improve, or maybe it's like you decided that actually social media, we want to improve our Instagram, we want to do more videos. Pick maybe just one thing and just think, what's the best way that we can improve what we're doing there already? And then maybe it's, for example, if it's your video, improving your sound, improving your lighting so, you know, people can see you better, or pick one thing. And it doesn't always have to mean that you're going to buy products and have to spend lots of money. It could just be going in a room that's got better lighting, going outside to a local place, standing in front of your kind of like local church or in a local park or somewhere like that, that's just maybe got a nicer, more interesting background to do that invite video that you're going to quickly record to say whatever it is that you're going to say. So I think, yeah, find one thing and think about how can we improve this one thing. And I think just by doing something like that, we can really vastly improve our communications. I mentioned Canva. I've got some really brilliant resources out there that just show you how to design a little bit better. They've also got so many templates. You don't even have to design anything. You could just use one of their templates. But just by making something more readable, more inviting, the text more understandable, I think there's a lot of ways we can just make things better. And I mentioned AI in a kind of like a negative way, I guess, that it's kind of oversaturated. But to be honest, I really love like a ChatGPT or others. Copilot is currently my fave, actually. I've written this and it just needs to be a little bit better. And just I've written this, I'm writing it for social media or wherever it's going. Can you please make it flow better or more concise? And then pasting in what I've written. And it may churn it out, send it back to me, and I go, don't like that, try again. Or I might say, oh yeah, actually that word they used is better, and then I can just weave that into what I've put. And I think if we're using it in that kind of way, just to help kind of be kind of an editor or a sparring partner, then you can just improve your copy. And I think I would say definitely try it out and just see how you can improve your copy in that way, make something flow a bit better or be more concise. Sometimes I write long stuff and I'm like, no, it needs to be short. Shorten this down, please. Sometimes it goes too short, but it is definitely, can be really helpful. So I think quality definitely is a challenge that many face, but there's ways to improve, as I've said. And you had a second question. What was the second part of that question, Hannah?
What excites you?
Excites me. I think as I kind of mentioned there at the end, definitely the impact. I think AI can have a good impact. So there's a lot of concerns, obviously, and ethical considerations out there. So it's definitely not to neglect any of those considerations. But I'm really enjoying that lots of tools are having kind of an AI plugged in. For example, Canva has some. There are also some video editors where you've recorded a longer video and you can say, cut this down into some shorts for social media, and it will select what it thinks are the best bits, and then you can go and have a look at those. And it just means that those jobs that perhaps were taking you a long time can be shortened down. And I think for everyone who's working in church comms, think majority volunteers particularly, time is precious, so finding tools where there's something like an AI integrated which is going to shorten your time doing something, I think is really valuable. So I think that's an exciting tech development for the future of church comms, absolutely. Obviously short term, that's a big impact. Long term, perhaps AI, that's a whole nother question about the long term impact of AI, maybe for another day. But yeah, I think definitely like that kind of short term, how it's impacting tools is definitely, I think, really exciting.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I'm hearing, like you've said, you know, so many people within churches who are using those tools just to get things done a little bit quicker, or maybe improve a bit of quality here and there, and it frees them up. And yeah, that's so helpful. Like that, focusing in on what is one thing you can improve and the impact that will make. That really speaks to, like, I'm so passionate about making small changes that make a big difference.
Yes.
And I'd sort of written down as a final question of where a church could focus if they're just starting out on the journey. But you kind of robbed my thunder with that, because that's so helpful of just knowing where to focus. Well, actually, just focus on one thing.
Yeah.
You know.
And I think it's like I said earlier, like you have got that defined audience. And I think when I was in my role doing the training, something I would always share is that when I used to live in Norwich, and we were all on Facebook. Facebook was our go-to, and it was more than 6 years ago now. And I came to London, and the contrast, no one was on Facebook, everyone was on Instagram. And so you can't say a church, you should focus on Instagram or you should do this. You really just have to look, where are people having conversations in my community right now? We love WhatsApp here, and WhatsApp features have really improved in their kind of communication management, in the groups that you can have. And I think that's really exciting for church comms, actually. I should have said that as well, that WhatsApp, the way that it's improved things. So it really helps you nurture that kind of inner circle of people, which is really important as well. So I think, there's a lot there. But again, definitely look at what do your community need? Where are they talking now? And focus in on that platform as a starting point. Don't get sidetracked by TikTok or other places, unless that's
TikTok's
relevant.
So fun.
We love TikTok. Yeah, I mean we do, but
yeah. You know, it can be overwhelming to think that church that I follow is on that platform, and perhaps you as a consumer, that's fine. Like, not to say consumer, but you know, you're watching Elevation Church or something. You know, I have clips come up on shorts on YouTube and stuff, and it would be really overwhelming, and I would be like, oh my gosh, we've got to do this, we have to like clip all of these really incredible clips from our preach. If you're a little rural church,
there's a fine line between like inspirational and somewhat depressing, isn't there?
Yeah, and I don't know, I used to get there was a church in London, I can't remember their name, and that's probably a good thing, I probably wouldn't have shared it anyway. But they always were targeting me on Instagram ads in their stories, and it'd be like, we've had amazing worship, you should come. And I was always like, why should I come? Like, that's completely irrelevant to me. And I think that sometimes we can get, I think when we mimic churches that perhaps like a Hillsong or other church where they're known for their worship and they have that reputation and that brand, that people kind of know it and they're drawn to it and it works because it's right for them. But that's not right for, as you've said, Hannah, it's not right for our kind of local church. No. I have to tell you, my husband is a vicar, and he's pioneering a little a chapel around the corner from us that didn't have a church community, and we're starting things there. And he has started every couple of months doing a kind of a music night. So it's not faith-based, it's just a way to open up the doors of this chapel that's been kind of relatively closed for many, many years to the community. And one of the things we've seen work so well is flyering. People love a flyer through the doors. And I was walking to the shop just before the last one, and a young couple came out of their house just ahead of me, and he turned to his wife and he was like, it's on Tuesday around the corner, we have to go. And she's like, oh okay, we'll try it out. And I was like, I think they're talking about my husband's event. How brilliant is that? But sometimes we can get sidetracked by TikTok videos and doing trends, when actually remembering, like, maybe we should just put a flyer through the door of the people around us and spend a little bit of time doing that. I'm not saying that the stuff on TikTok's wrong. I love Rev Ann. Do you know Rev Ann on TikTok? She's brilliant. So amazing. She's got such a ministry there. So, but that's not for everybody. And we have to keep our eyes on who's around us and our local community. So I think think about what works. Fly for a job, nothing wrong with that.
I mean, that would be the perfect segue into our upcoming episode on print publicity and door-to-door. Unfortunately, it's not the next episode, but we're close enough. Right? So come
Sounds
back for
like
that
a
in
great episode.
however many weeks that's coming out in. Liz, thank you so much for sharing with us today and inspiring us, and that's been super helpful. Really, thank you for
pleasure.
that. If people want to connect with you or find you online, where might they do that?
I mean, so boring. Sorry, LinkedIn is probably the place to come find me. So I'll be on LinkedIn. My Instagram, as I mentioned, I've deleted it off my phone, so it's a private account. But yeah, I probably wouldn't notice if you requested.
No
apologies, but LinkedIn's probably the best place to come find me and say hi.
Yeah, we'll put a link to that in the episode description, and the other things that you've mentioned and talked about today. But
Brilliant.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.